Good morning. Let's talk about my favorite report in Achieve. My favorite report can be accessed by hitting this little hamburger stack looking icon in the upper left hand corner. That brings you to a menu of many different selections. Today we are going to go into the data center and choose Student Reports. Student Reports brings up a variety of different reports, different ways you can access data. Today we're going to look at performance reports. Alright, finally loaded. The performance report that we are going to focus on, because it's my favorite, is how has Lexile reading measure performance changed over time? This tends to be the one that I print out at the beginning of the month and give to advisors so that they can conference with their readers. In this screen, you should be able to choose different classes. You will have fewer classes than I will, but let's look at my advisory class. I'm going to have all users. Let's see, it defaults to this year. And we are going to view the report. Alright, in this report we can see my advisory class. And we can see each student as they have progressed through the year. You see their starting level set in September, and 3 activities done in September. October, 6 activities. November, 6 activities. Growth, -30. So this is a student I would probably want to look at and conference with. How I would go about conferencing is I would say to the student, this is what your progress over the year so far looks like. Things that I notice are that you came in with a strong Lexile and you have done 6 activities in November, October. However, we're still not seeing any growth. Looking at a -30, that's because the program is designed to increase the Lexile if the average for the month is 75 to 100. It will maintain the Lexile from month to month if the average for the month is 75. And then if your average on the first try of the questions is less than 75, the program is designed to say, oh no, the reader is getting articles that are too difficult. We're going to back off on the Lexile or difficulty. I do like to remind readers that they can't lose brain power. I mean, that's very unlikely. That would have to be the result of an injury or something. So this negative growth isn't really negative growth. It's not a loss in skill. It's just the way the program functions. So let's look at that. How can we address this and talk about it with this reader? Anything that's blue, of course, is due. So I'm going to go into November. And I'm going to click on the activities for this reader. And I'm going to look at all the activities. And I will talk to the reader and say, all right, what do we notice here? We notice that the first try is not as high as the second try. This one it is. But I think we can make the generalization that the second try is much better than the first try. What that tells me is that when the reader slows down, rereads, they are capable of getting most questions correct. And this reader, if the power had been put into the first try, would be advancing. But because the power was not, and time was not put into the first try, they have not shown Lexile growth. All right, so this one, goal, maybe we'd like to look at that. That's the most recent article. Perhaps we want to dive deeper. You can actually show the reader every single answer they've ever answered. So you can go into goal and start talking about that article. Then we kind of look and go, wow, you got main idea right. You're making inferences. Synonym, which is the closest synonym for the word inspire. Well, then you ask the reader, do you know what a synonym is? And make sure that they are clear on synonym and antonym. You also want to remind that Achieve is not testing what they know, but growing what they know. And it is perfectly acceptable, encouraged, in fact, to look up all words that you meet that you don't know. All right, so it looks like the correct word is spark, the correct synonym. This reader had to have chosen something other than spark. So, which is the closest synonym for the word inspire? All right, and we would talk about that and those choices and how preserve is not a synonym for inspire, discover is not a synonym for inspire, and reduce is not. So those choices would be incorrect. Okay, I can close that and go on to the next article that you want to look at. I like to look at articles that are really good because it looks like this was a good day, good effort was made. Something is still plaguing this reader, and maybe we can address it. All right, not. Which question is not answered? Well, this is the question type that we know in our building is missed most often by our readers. And the reason why it's missed most often is because the readers don't want to spend the time. I mean, this takes the most time. You have to go back into the article using the online highlighter and find that this is actually in the article highlighted. This is actually in the article highlighted. And this is also in the article, leaving by process of elimination. Why did the government try to force indigenous nations to give up their traditions? So that does take quite a bit of time, and the reader should be reminded that whatever amount of time they are currently using for their article, that time should be a little bit longer and increased. Okay, so that's the only problem in that article. And we can continue to conference like this if you have time and you find it helpful. When it's a real stinker, 50 is not so great, right? And that drags down the average. I tend not to look at the ones that are a lower score. I feel like that's not as informative because this might have been a day where it wasn't, a real great effort. There might have been distractions. But if you know the reader and you know that they're working next to others or they're having issues with distractions, that is something that certainly could be addressed. All right. All right, let's go on perhaps to another reader. Let's see, who else would we look at? Well, we would probably want to look at a reader that is showing no growth so far. So here we have the reader coming in with a strong Lexile in the beginning, doing a number of activities that should result in advancement. Every month you have to do at least 4 activities, so the program won't even advance at all. So we've got a sufficient number, but we're not showing growth. So let's go ahead and click in to the data and see what's going on with this reader. So we would point out the trends and see what jumps out at us. Once again, it looks like on the second try, we're at 82%. The first try is at 68%. We can see the second try, and the reader gets the second try, but all of the data is pulled from the first try. So with that knowledge, we would want to look at some of these different articles and say, wow, look at, you really did great in the story of the Code Talkers. Do you remember that one? Why do you suppose you did so well on that one? What was going on that day? And then you want to look at something like living on Mars. Wow, this is really a stinker. This has a negative impact on the average, and you can talk about math averages and how when you have very few data points, a low score is going to have a significant negative impact. All right, and then pick something to look at. Once again, I do like to look at the scores that are higher, because I feel like that was a good day, a good effort, and we can troubleshoot the skills that are still could be worked on. A reader can tell from the article that. Now this is inference. So inference, I would say, you know what, this is a tough question. And we're going to continue to work on inference. You're going to work on this, and you're only in 6th grade. This is something readers are going to work on 7th grade, 8th grade. I'm not going to get too hung up on the inference today. Okay? All right. Let's close that. Let's close this reader. And yep, I would just conference with the readers who are showing no growth or negative